Chapter 542, World Embroiled in War. After Ling Tian and the others entered the city, they hesitated for a long while before deciding that it wasn't the right time for them to return to the Ling residence. After all, it was still broad daylight, and with the many servants and maids of the family, it would mean that Ling Tian's whereabouts would be easily exposed. Ling Tian decided that it would be best for him to wait until the night before visiting his mother and grandmother. After all, these few elders of his had been extremely worried about him. While others may not know of the prestigious beyond heavens, how could a character like old Madame Ling not know? Even if she was extremely confident in her grandson, she was also apprehensive about Justice's strength. After these few months, her head was filled with much more white hair. Madame Chutinger had also feared for her son frequently during this period of time. Just as the old saying went, the mother worries when the son travels. Furthermore, Ling Tian was being chased by the #1 expert in the world, Justice. How could Chutinger not be worried? On top of that, she did not dare to display her worries in front of her mother or father-in-law. After a few months, Chutinger was much frailer than before, and as such, Ling Tian had no choice but to make a personal appearance to ease the worries of them both. With the wisdom and experience of his elders, it was impossible for them to reveal his whereabouts. The only one who would possibly reveal his whereabouts would be his father, who didn't know how to keep his mouth shut. However, his father was currently not at home and was out in battle. In fact, of all his elders, General Ling Zhao was the one who was the least worried about Ling Tian. In Ling Zhao's words, "This daddy has never seen that so-called justice, but this daddy knows that my son is capable of taking the head of the enemy's general while being surrounded by 1,000,000 soldiers. If that justice wants to chase after Ling Tian, he better not be frightened by Ling Tian instead." Thus, the first place where Ling Tian visited was the Ling family courtyard. He immediately instructed Ling Chen to hold an emergency meeting with the upper echelons of the courtyard and gathered them all in a hall. While Ling Tian had paid attention to the happenings of the courtyard via messenger falcons, it was impossible for everything to be written down on the notes, and there was naturally a need for him to personally take a look at everything that had been going on in the courtyard. At the same time, it was also for him to meet with all of his upper echelons to inform them of his safety and let them know that the main pillar of the courtyard was back. Ming Liege, Feng Mo and the rest did not know what this meeting was about, and the moment they entered the secret chamber, they saw Ling Tian seated at the head of the table. They all could not help but be surprised, followed by being overwhelmed with ecstasy. Amongst them all, Ming Liege was undoubtedly the most surprised. Feng Mo and the others were all Ling Tian's trusted aides and had always thought of their young noble as an invincible existence. While they were shocked by the fact that Justice was able to force Ling Tian to leave Skybearing, they weren't too worried about Ling Tian's life. Together with the fact that Ling Tian sent them instructions regularly, they were all at ease. However, Ming Liege was not just a famous strategist in the world but also a knowledgeable scholar. He knew what the Martial Order Medallion of Beyond Heavens signified and could not help but be worried for Ling Tian. Witnessing Ling Tian's safe return, he didn't know if he was glad about Ling Tian's safety or shocked that he could escape from Justice's hands. There weren't many people who were part of this meeting, and only Ling Tian, Ling Chen, Ling Jian, Li Zhu, Ming Liege, and Feng Mo were present. Even Ling Six and the others in charge of collecting information weren't present in this meeting. However, the news that they had collected was all in Li Zhu's hands. While there were only a few people present in this meeting, the members present were undoubtedly the true elites and core of the courtyard. The most interesting thing was the fact that of the 6 of them, only Ling Tian's strength was made known to the world, but the rest of them still remained in hiding. While Ling Jian was the infamous first pavilion head, there weren't many in the world who knew his real name. As for Ling Chen and Li Zhu, the 2 of them were even more mysterious, and apart from Ling Tian, there probably wasn't anyone else aware of their true strength. If one wanted to find another person who understood both their strengths, then it would probably be Justice, who had the opportunity to exchange a few blows with both of them. The first discussion topic of the meeting was the recent military actions of the Ling family courtyard, with Ling Zhao and Shen Ruhu leading 300,000 soldiers out to battle. It could be said that this was the first large-scale military campaign of the Ling family. It was necessary for them to treat the matter seriously, and if there was the slightest bit of error, their foundations could be damaged. Hearing Ling Yan questioning about the military affairs, Meng Lij, who was in charge of military affairs, stroked his beard with a delighted grin. Young noble had not returned previously, but the matter of the Nangong family ambushing Miss Chan could not be delayed. After a series of discussions, we decided to let General Ling send 200,000 soldiers down south. Up until now, while both parties are at a state of mutual hostility, the war has not begun. This was within our expectations and was also the outcome that we wanted to achieve. Meng Lij revealed a crafty smile. Young noble wasn't around after all, and it wouldn't be good if the world really broke out into chaos. Before General Ling set off for battle, I invited Duke Ling to command General Ling to surround them but not attack, pressure them but not fight. In other words, oppress the enemy and create pressure but not fight them head on. Regardless of how advantageous the battle situation is, they are not to start the battle. If not, they will be dealt with. Plus, the military law, they must delay until a young noble returns to make a decision. Ling Tian almost spat out his mouth full of tea. Such a decision would probably make his father extremely frustrated. After all, for the number one general of the empire to be threatened with a military law, it would be impossible for him to not be frustrated. However, Meng Lij was also extremely crafty and summoned his grandfather to be the one issuing the order. If not, there probably wouldn't be anyone in the world capable of suppressing his father. Meng Lij still displayed a scholarly elegance. As for General Shen, I also issued the same instructions. For us to send out two separate troops, it is number 1, to protect ourselves and be prepared to go to war with Southern Jing, and number 2, to test the waters. While we sent out our forces to two different locations, it isn't our true intention to start the war. Thus, the risk with our actions is low. At the same time, with such a large-scale movement of our troops, all the other empires do not dare to take this matter lightly. Southern Jing aside, even Eastern Zhao is also in chaos, and the Zhao family has split their forces into three. One group is led by General Zhao Wuhen, a total of 150,000 soldiers setting up camp at Sunset River. It is only 150 miles away from Southern Jing, and they would be able to arrive with the snap of the fingers. This group is undoubtedly targeted at General Ling's 200,000 strong army. Another group of 150,000 soldiers is led by Zhao Wuju and has arrived at the Eastern Zhao borders. With Eastern Zhao as the divide, they are having a standoff with General Shen Ruhu's forces. The final group also consists of 150,000 soldiers and is led by Zhao Fengyang personally. They are currently 500 miles away from Skybearing and have also set up camp to lay in wait. Meng Lij seemed to have been exhausted from talking and paused for a sip of tea before continuing. Currently, the situation is extremely clear, and the Zhao family's large-scale movement of their forces is obviously targeted at our Ling family. The moment our forces make a move, the Zhao family would definitely join forces with our enemy to wipe out our forces. At the same time, the third group would attack Skybearing and seize the foundations of our Ling family. There are even signs of them working together with Eastern Zhao and Southern Jing. If our original motive was to start a war with both Eastern Zhao and Southern Jing, it would be impossible for us to turn back. However, even if that isn't our intention, the current situation isn't optimistic either. Hearing what Meng Lij had said, Ling Tian focused his attention on the map. The positions and directions of the three armies had been marked out by Meng Lij on the map with red arrows. After looking at the map, Ling Tian smiled and said with a hint of mockery in his voice, being able to mobilize 450,000 soldiers at once. The Zhao family is truly the number one financial magnate. They truly think extremely highly of our Ling family. Hearing Ling Tian's casual tone and confident appearance, these individuals who had been extremely nervous for the past few days heaved a sigh of relief. Ling Tian then knocked on the table with his finger and asked indifferently, "How are the Zhao armies receiving their supplies?" The amount of food their soldiers and horses consume can't be small, right? How far away are we from the supply route of the Zhao armies? Is there anything that we can make use of? Meng Lij's eyes lit up and he quickly replied, "The first group is 600 miles away from the Zhao family. The second group is 400 miles away from the Zhao family and the third group is 1,300 miles away from the Zhao family. They received supplies from the cities along the way and there aren't many loopholes for us to exploit. The Zhao family does indeed live up to the name of being the #1 financial magnate. They are actually able to support 3 huge armies single-handedly without a single sign of struggle. While Meng Lij didn't say much, the bright light in his eyes shows that he had understood Ling Tian's intentions. Ling Tian naturally noticed Meng Lij's expression and asked, "Which group does Mr. Meng think we should deal with first?" Meng Lij smiled mysteriously. "It is best to remain silent rather than take action. We can wait for news from the north and lay in wait. We can remain motionless to deal with the myriad of possible changes." Ling Tian laughed. "Mr. is exceptional indeed. If that's the case, we shall follow Mr.'s plans and ignore them for a few days. It is just that Mr. will be tired over the next few days." Meng Lij stroked his beard and smiled. "It is this subordinate's job. How will I feel tired?" Ling Tian smiled and looked at Li Zhu. Before he could even ask her a question, Li Zhu began speaking. The Yu army had already confronted Western Han and they have fought 3 battles already. While Western Han suffered defeat in all 3 battles, their defenses are extremely tight. The Yu family was only able to occupy 2 insignificant cities. They probably won't be able to take Western Han down anytime soon. Ling Tian nodded his head and asked with interest, "Who is the general for the Western Han army?" Li Zhu swept the information in her hands and said, "It is the old General Li Zonghan. He is the #1 general of Western Han for the past 30 years." Before both the armies fought for the first time, Li Zonghan executed Han Taizhuan and used his blood as a sacrifice for his flag. This matter caused a huge commotion back then. Li Zonghan, a broken bar. Ling Tian muttered that name under his breath and a glow could be seen in his eyes. It seems like Simonsa had exposed Han Taizhuan. If not, with Han Taizhuan's status as general of the Imperial Army, it would be impossible for Li Zonghan to kill him as a sacrifice for the flag. However, Simon Chongtian did not go out to battle but Western Han chose to send Li Zonghan, who is far past his prime. It seems like the Western Han imperial family is truly concerned about the rumors of the Yu and Simon family forming an alliance. It seems like Simon's action had a huge effect. The second and third master of the Yu family also arrived safely back at Bright Jade City. Li Zhu continued. Chapter 543, Deployment. Ling Tian began to frown and responded with an without saying anything else. After a moment of silence, he said, "We need to put in more effort into our information net in the north. I feel that the reason for Yu Mantang and Yu Mantian's departure can't be simple. They actually had the ability to escape from our information net." Li Zhu acknowledged what Ling Tian said before continuing. "There is also Eastern Zhou. The Dongfang family head, Dongfang Jingtian, was assassinated by a mysterious assassin. The assassin's martial arts are extremely profound and unfathomable. He was actually able to kill the #1 expert of the Dongfang family in a few breaths' time. The rumors of the world say that it is extremely likely to be the actions of the first pavilion head. Ling Jian has already confirmed that this matter was not performed by our side. On top of that, Ling Jian has seen Dongfang Jinglei's strength before, and if Dongfang Jingtian's martial arts were similar, there wouldn't be anyone in the first pavilion capable of easily killing him. Dongfang Jinglei washed out the Dongfang family in a bloody operation 7 days ago and has taken over the position of family head. But for some odd reason, whenever the Imperial Palace summons Dongfang Jinglei, Dongfang Jinglei will reject the summons using the excuse of being sick. According to the news from Eastern Zhou, Dongfang Mingere seems to hate Dongfang Jinglei to the bone and has the intention to get rid of him. This is something that we have to guard against." As she said that, Li Zhu looked at Ling Tian with a profound look. While she did not know why Eastern Zhou would fall into such chaos and did not hear Ling Tian mentioning the matter, she was certain that Ling Tian was definitely related to the matter. After all, the martial arts of the assassin were just too unfathomable. There weren't many individuals in the world with such a martial arts accomplishment, and Ling Tian just happened to be one of them. On top of that, the person who took over the Dongfang family was Dongfang Jinglei and not anyone else. Dongfeng Jinglei was the person who had an agreement with Ling Tian. As Ling Tian saw Li Zhu's gaze, he naturally knew what she was thinking about. He then replied with a smile, "Order Shenruhu that he can make use of the army to echo Dongfeng Jinglei's actions. However, he must never enter into battle no matter what. Also, order Ling 33 to work together with Dongfeng Jinglei. He must aid Dongfeng Jinglei in taking over the Dongfeng family while sowing discord between the Dongfeng family and Eastern Zhou Imperial family. The best would be for both the parties to end up fighting each other. As for the detailed plan, he can come up with it on his own and he does not need to report anything to me." Li Zhu acknowledged the order and recorded it down. As for the Shui family or Broken Bar, Ling Tian looked at Ling Chen. Ling Chen immediately reported all of the Shui family actions and how their courtyard was involved. As Ling Tian heard Ling Chen's report, he could not help but shake his head with a bitter laugh. He even had the urge to grab the lass over to his knee and give her a good spanking. The moment the thought about that, his thoughts immediately drifted elsewhere, thinking about Ling Chen's appearance when being spanked and the soft feeling on his palms. A ball of fire burned in his abdomen. Young noble Ling had not eaten for almost half a year already and it was time for him to have a good meal. While Ling Chen's actions may seem extremely profound in the eyes of others, how could Ling Tian, who was extremely familiar with Ling Chen, not know what she was thinking about? This lass obviously wants to meet Shui Qianrup. Isn't this lass fantasizing too much? She actually wants to win the whole Shui family over without fighting a battle. That was a 1,000-year-old family on par with the Yu family. Even if all of their successors are dead, there will still be a bunch of old fogies around. Only if all the old fogies were dead would Ling Chen's motives be achieved. However, what was the point of having a Shui family with everyone dead? At the same time, Ling Tian was also able to see other things from Ling Chen's actions. Ling Chen was definitely extremely fond of Shui Qianru. Since things had already developed to such an extent, they could only take things one step at a time. In any case, it would be impossible for the Shui family to create a storm in the heavenly star continent. Ling Chen glanced at Ling Tian anxiously to see what kind of an expression he had. Seeing his emotionless expression as though he was thinking about something, Ling Chen could not help but be flustered and thought that Ling Tian disagreed with her actions. Who would have thought that a lascivious smile would suddenly curl upon his face? With her understanding of Ling Tian, how could she not understand what he was thinking about? Her face flushed red immediately as she lowered her head in embarrassment to Broken Bar. The secret chamber fell silent as everyone stared at each other, not knowing why their young noble would suddenly fall into deep thought and have such a Broken Bar lecherous smile on his face. Just what was he thinking about? Just when Ling Tian was fantasizing about his knight, he suddenly felt a pain and it was Li Zhu giving him a good pinch on his side. Ling Tian glared at her while gritting his teeth in pain and was immediately awoken from his daze. Looking at everyone, Ling Jian still had the same expression and was seated with his back straight and a serious expression on his face. As for Meng Liege, he had an amiable smile on his face. However, Ling Tian was enraged to realize that the smile on Feng Mo's face was even more perverted than his. An experienced man like Feng Mo naturally knew what his young noble was thinking about. It was no wonder why he smiled at Ling Tian with a look of tacit understanding. A Broken Bar. Cough cough. A Broken Bar. Feng Mo, why are you smiling in such a weird manner? Do you need this young noble to help treat your ailments? This young noble's medical skills aren't too bad. Ling Tian glared at Feng Mo and asked seriously. A Broken Bar. This subordinate tag Broken Bar. A Broken Bar. No, a Broken Bar. Feng Mo stuttered on the spot without knowing what to say. Facing the fierce glare of his young noble, he did not even know where to place his arms. Are you sure? Your head is swaying like there is an anteater underneath your wrath. I cannot even see your eyes in the midst of your hairy face and I thought that your face was cramping up. Are you sure you don't need me to treat your ailments? Ling Tian said with a trace of pity, and his fierce gaze told Feng Mo that he truly wanted to treat him. There really isn't anything wrong with me. I thank young noble for your concern. A chill ran down Feng Mo's spine and he quickly added on. This subordinate's body is as tough as an ox, and I can go through mountains of blades and seas of fire for young noble at any time." The expression on his face was one of absolute loyalty, as though he was ready to give up his life for Ling Tian. Anyone who saw such an expression would definitely praise him for being a truly loyal warrior. Ling Tian replied with a bland "Oh," and said with a tinge of disappointment, "If that's the case, remember to inform this young noble when your face cramps up again. This young noble will definitely treat it for you personally, and I will not go back on my words." Feng Mo's face immediately turned bitter. This subordinate does not dare. He then recalled the times when someone tried to escape training by feigning cramps. In the end, Ling Tian personally treated that a sick person, and that fellow truly had cramps all over his body. A broken bar with such a precedence. Feng Mo would never dare to say that he had cramps in front of Ling Tian, even if he had 100 times the guts. Ling Tian snorted and said with dissatisfaction, "Remember to open your mouth when you smile in future. Don't put on such a bitter expression as though you want to fart but can't do so. It wouldn't be good if I think that you have cramps." Feng Mo quickly acknowledged what Ling Tian said with a bitter expression and did not dare to say anything else. Ming Lij, Ling Chen and Li Zhu leaned on the table as their shoulders trembled, a broken bar at the same time. Ling Jian also looked at Feng Mo with a sympathizing smiley broken bar. Ling Jian coughed, back to the main point. "Chinner, where were we?" Ling Chen quickly suppressed her laughter and continued the report. As Ling Jian heard about the actions of the three Shui brothers, he could not help but let out a sigh as he thought, "Why are these aristocratic disciples all so useless? Could it be that the only thing left of their 1,000-year-old inheritance is their arrogance and schemes?" He then thought about all the aristocratic disciples which he had met before. It seems as though only Dongfeng Jinglei and Shui Qianhuan truly had some capabilities. However, Shui Qianhuan was currently on the brink of death. A broken bar when the Shui family launched an ambush against the Yu family. Ling Kai personally took action to capture the three Shui brothers, and they are now our captives. As for whether or not we should hand them over to Shui Qianhuan, may young noble give us the instruction. After thinking for a moment, Ling Tian said, "Hand them over to Shui Qianhuan." After all, Ling Kai already made a promise to Shui Qianhuan. However, I think that Shui Qianhuan should only take care of Shui Qianhuan alone, and the other two should be fine. This is also good. If the other two are also dead, things would become boring. Ming Lij chuckled, "That's right, these two individuals are our treasures. Them making a scene in the Shui family will be far better than us trying to sow discord. This may end up becoming a huge aid for our plans to invade Heavenly Wind." Li Zhu twitched her lips. The thoughts of you men are also vile, always wishing for a fire to break out in the backyard of other people's homes before picking up benefits from the side. The two of you can truly bring out the best in each other. Ming Lij burst out laughing. There is also Miss Shui Qianhuan. After I brought her back, she regained her consciousness once but was extremely agitated. She was in a state of hopelessness and almost attempted suicide. I could only give her some medicine to calm her mind down, and she is currently sleeping. Ling Tian shut his eyes and said after a long while, "I shall go and pay her a visit when she is awake. She is also a pitiful lady." He then glared at Ling Chen. "Since your plan has already developed to such an extent, you probably wouldn't let me go if I do not go along with your plans." These were the words that Ling Chen had been waiting for, and she quickly agreed. Seeing that no one else had anything to report, Ling Chen continued, "When I was chasing after those black-robed men, I found something strange." She frowned with a vexed expression. "Oh, what's the matter?" "The martial arts of those black-robed men were extremely high. If they did not escape in 3 different directions, it would have been impossible for me to snatch back younger sister. But when I was fighting the black-robed man that I chased, I felt as though he was holding back and could not use his full strength. It was definitely not because he was afraid of injuring younger sister who was on his back." Ling Chen sat by the side with her brows furrowed. "Did you feel as though his energy wasn't weak but his martial skills were incomplete? He only used half his strength in every move he made?" Ling Tian asked with a profound grin. Chapter 544, Battle of the Gold Thread. "That's right, that was indeed the case." Ling Chen nodded her head with frustration. "However, Isn't it extremely strange for something like this to happen with an expert of his class? There must definitely be a reason for everything, and the reason behind this is extremely simple. There isn't a need for you to find it strange. The moment both his brothers sent him flying with their swords, I could tell where the problem was. Ling Tian replied, the three of them should be cultivating the joint attack formula. Only when the three of them are as one will they be able to unleash their strongest attacks. However, you only faced a single person and thus naturally found that his moves were incomplete. However, if you ever meet the three of them together, you must not underestimate them. You should avoid them if you can. With the three of them working together, even Li Zu wouldn't be able to easily win against them. As he said those last words, Ling Tian's tone became heavy. They will never get the chance to join hands again. Ling Chen smiled and a tinge of depression could be seen in her eyes. Ling Tian was a little surprised. Why so? Because I killed him already, Ling Chen said with her body trembling slightly. You killed him? Ling Tian stood up abruptly and startled all the rest present in the meeting. They then saw Ling Tian stretching his head out and looking at Ling Chen closely. My goodness, you actually killed him? These a broken bar, how is this possible? Ling Tian's words were filled with incredulity, as though he saw a female cat being picked up by a male Maozi broken bar. It was also no wonder that Ling Tian was so surprised. When he left, while Ling Chen's martial arts were extremely high, she did not even dare to kill a mouse. Who would have thought that after being away for a few months, it was as though Bodhisattva turned into the devil. Regardless of how flexible Ling Tian could be in his thinking, he just wasn't able to wrap his head around the matter. Upon seeing the delighted expression on Li Zu's face beside him, how could Ling Tian not understand what was going on? He could not help but take in a breath of cold air. To train Ling Chen to such an extent, she must have suffered from quite a bit of shock, right? If he was still around, he definitely wouldn't bear forcing her as such. Ling Chen's face flushed red as she leaned back slightly. Currently, the two of them were not alone in this room, and Miss Li Zu was crossing her arms and watching happily by the side. On top of that, Ling Jian and the rest were also watching them like a show. After all, Ling Tian had always remained calm and steady in all situations and would never react in such an exaggerated manner. A broken bar. Young nobly broken bar, what are you doing? Everyone is watching USA broken bar. Ling Chen tried to lean back as far as she could, and her back formed a beautiful crescent shape with her face bright red. Ling Tian's body was hovering over her body and was a few short feet away from her. Ling Chen could only try her best to lean back as much as she can. A broken bar, while she had the urge to push Ling Tian's head aside, she could not bear to do so in her heart. Feeling Ling Tian's warm breath on her face, she became all the more distressed and embarrassed. Ling Tian finally settled the shock in his heart, and at the moment, Ling Chen was almost forced to the ground. Looking at Ling Chen's adorable appearance of being reluctant to push him aside, he felt a heat in his abdomen and could not help but give her a smooch. Ling Chen immediately let out a shriek. She never imagined that her young noble's skin would be thick to the point that he would kiss her in front of everyone else. Her embarrassment reached its peak, and the breath that she was holding was finally released as she collapsed onto the ground. A broken bar. Everyone burst out laughing in unison. Even the usually zombified Ling Jian was also all smiles at this moment. Ling Chen quickly got up with a shriek and flew out of the room as though she was escaping. However, everyone could clearly see that her usually fair ears were bright red in color. A broken bar. Ling Tian stood up without a change of expression and said with an innocent tone, I can't be blamed, right? Who would have thought that a martial arts expert like her would fall down so easily? Ming Li let out a few dry coughs. Cough cough. A broken bar. Of course, a broken bar. Young noble can't be blamed. A broken bar. Cough cough. A broken bar. Li Zu walked over to Ling Tian's side and snorted. Bing Yan is already extremely familiar with melding martial arts into her paintings. She has also achieved elementary accomplishment in melding her paintings into martial arts, and you should go and visit her when you have the time. Right, your divine shocking dragon formula should be at the 10th level already, right? Me, you, and little sister Ling Chen should find a time to take care of her heavenly negative locked meridians. It is a hidden disaster waiting to happen. And with the three of us joining hands, we should have a 90% chance of getting rid of it. It wouldn't be good to rely on the Great Cyclic Palette to suppress it all the time. If the Great Cyclic Palette is consumed in excess, Bing Yan's meridians wouldn't be able to endure the potent medicinal effects of the great cyclic pellet after her heavenly negative locked meridians are removed. It is best for us to take care of it as soon as possible. Ling Tian nodded his head in agreement, and he had also thought about this matter before his return. He originally intended to join hands with Ling Chen to help remove the heavenly negative locked meridians for Bing Yan. Now that he had another Li Zu and the fact that Li Zu's attainment of the divine ice formula was no weaker than Ling Chen, the risks of removing the heavenly negative locked meridians would naturally be much less. On top of that, his own cultivation had also improved greatly and the success rate should be more than 90%. Li Zu then glared at Ling Tian and said, "Just wait for younger sister Ling Chen to settle the score with you tonight." She then walked away proudly, not forgetting to look at Ling Tian with disdain as though she was looking at someone who wasn't her match. This gaze of hers was akin to adding fuel to the fire, and a fierce glare shot out from Ling Tian's eyes. His battle intent soared to the heavens and almost wanted to challenge Li Zu on the spot. Ling Tian rubbed his chin and grinned. I would love for her to do that. However, no one replied to him and he could not help but be puzzled. Looking around, Ling Tian realized that the only person left was the fuming Ling Jian. Ming Legion Feng Mo had already escaped from the room. Jian, after a life and death encounter, your swordplay seems to have improved greatly. Looking at Ling Jian standing by his side solemnly as though he wanted to say something, how could Ling Tian not know what he was thinking about? However, Ling Tian could not bear to let Ling Jian get abused by Li Zu and thus changed the topic by praising Ling Jian while preparing to make his escape. Young noble, please allow me to fight her. Ling Jian's voice was resolute with his battle intent roaring. One of Ling Tian's foot was already halfway at the door as he replied, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Jian, we are all on the same side. Why not forget about idle broken bar? Ling Jian's face turned cold as he said with a grievance, young noble may not know. When I was injured, this demoness placed gold thread into my medicine, and if I didn't drink it, she would add earthworms into the medicine broken bar along the way back. I drank a full 19 bowls of medicine filled with gold thread. Broken bar, I must definitely give her a good beating. I seek young noble's understanding. When talking about his nightmarish experience, Ling Jian's teeth was grit and his veins began to bulge. He had an extremely fierce expression on his face and no longer looked like the cold assassin he usually was. Ling Tian was stunned for a moment and could not help but laugh bitterly. He never imagined that Li Zu would bring Ling Jian in such a manner. No wonder Ling Jian would act as though he had a life and death enmity with her. He then let out a sigh and said helplessly, Jian, it seems that you drank these 19 bowls for nothing. Why is your martial arts the only thing that is improving and not your brains? A broken bar. She is a lady after all, and a loss would be extremely embarrassing. A broken bar. She will not be embarrassed and I will not go overboard. She is a lady after all. I only need young noble to approve this battle of ours. Ling Jian was filled with confidence and a smirk could be seen on his face. At this moment, he had completely forgotten about the painful experience of losing under Ling Qian's hands. He then added on with delight, the person who loses must drink 19 bowls of gold thread water. Regardless of victory or defeat, this matter will be resolved after the battle. Ling Jian took a step forward anxiously and said, young noble, I have already prepared the gold thread. She definitely wouldn't be the embarrassed party. I was trying to say that you will be extremely embarrassed if you get beaten by a lady. You even prepared the gold thread? Prepared it for yourself to drink? Ling Tian speechlessly looked at Ling Jian's excited expression. At the same time, he could not help but muse in his heart, poor chap. Just wait to suffer. You are trying to dig a grave for yourself. A broken bar. This is no different from jumping off a cliff. Young noble, I must fight her no matter what, Ling Jian insisted. In front of Ling Tian, this was the first time Ling Jian was so insistent on something. It was enough to see just how scarred he was by Li Zu's actions. Ling Tian let out a sigh and said with schadenfreude, alright then, a broken bar gold thread can also be considered a rare medicine. This is something that will only grow in the wild and tastes pretty good. A broken bar. Ling Jian left excitedly. Ling Tian stood in a daze for a long while before shaking his head. It seems like Ling Jian was addicted to drinking gold thread. There are truly too many wonders in the universe. To think that someone would actually get addicted to drinking gold thread. A broken bar. Ling Tian sighed and walked around in the yard. This yard was connected to the exit of the secret chamber and was an independent existence from the rest of the courtyard. This was a place that was built under Ling Jian's orders. There wasn't a single soul around this place, and the only people who were allowed into this yard were all the highest ranking individuals of the courtyard who would not divulge any secrets. Since Ling Tian intended to remain in hiding for another month, he needed a place to keep himself concealed. The moment he entered the yard, Ling Tian felt as though he was in prison. Li Zhu, Yu Bingyan and the newly added Yanzu would usually coop themselves up in a secret chamber, and it would be impossible for ordinary members to see them. In the eyes of the outsiders, both Ling Qian and Ling Jian were the ones with true authority in the courtyard. Ling Yan never imagined that his work would pile up immediately after his return. His plan to take a few days of off for leisure was completely foiled. There was Shui Qian's affair, the Shui family's affair, Yu Bingyan's affair, and also the fact that Ling Jian insisted on fighting Li Xui a broken bar. At the north, Yu Manlu had already gathered his troops and sought to rule over his half of the continent. He wanted to first pacify any chaos in the southeastern region before sending his troops up north. Only after ensuring that his own backyard is peaceful would he be at ease to set off to conquer other lands. As such, the flags of war were raised in the southeastern region, and battle seems to be breaking out at any moment. How many more days of peace would he have? Ling Tian let out a long sigh. The biggest headache was the fact that he had to return to the Ling residence tonight. Who knows how his grandparents and mother were going to torture him. After all, he truly made them worried this time around, and he didn't think that they would let him off so easily. Should he feign injury? Ling Tian began thinking about his little tricks. As for the matters with regards to the Ling family courtyard, things are much simpler. Ling Tian had already come up with the order by which he would complete his tasks. First, he will settle the problem with Shui Qian and the Shui family. After settling them down, he would arrange the battle between Ling Jian and Li Zhu. Finally, he would help Yu Bingyan remove her heavenly negative locked meridians. Chapter 545, How to Comfort. With regards to the first and third matter, one was extremely brain-taxing while the other required a lot of strength. Both of them weren't easy matters to solve, and even the slightest mistake would screw matters up completely. Naturally, Ling Jian's matter would become the second matter. Ling Tian completely intended to treat Ling Jian's battle with Li Su like a show for him to enjoy. It would be like relaxing with a good show after a day of hard work at Broken Bar. With regards to the battle between the two, even if Ling Tian did not think highly about Ling Jian, it was still necessary to allow Li Su to force out Ling Jian's potential. After all, it wasn't easy to find someone capable of suppressing Ling Jian completely with his current strength. Even if there was, Ling Jian would definitely have to put his life at risk, and if something were to go wrong, the losses would far exceed the gains. While Ling Tian would be considered someone who could suppress Ling Jian would have his hands tied when facing him and would never be able to unleash all of his strength to Broken Bar. Furthermore, there was another reason for Ling Tian to agree to this battle. He wanted to see just what level Ling Jian was at so that he knew how to guide him from now on. Of course, regardless of whether it was Li Zhu forcing out Ling Jian's potential or allowing Ling Tian to observe Ling Jian's strength, there was one condition which had to be fulfilled. Ling Jian must definitely be wasted by Li Zhu. The only thing that Ling Tian could do would be to control the matter such that Ling Jian's prestige in the courtyard would not be affected. Thinking about how Ling Jian had already prepared the gold thread, Ling Tian could not help but laugh. Ling Jian, who was so eager for revenge, must have definitely prepared a large amount of gold thread. Who knows if he was aware that this gold thread was actually prepared for himself. Thinking about how Ling Jian's valor would land him with a bunch of bruises while enjoying his gold thread drink, Ling Tian suddenly felt that life was extremely wonderful. While he was extremely busy right now, there would always be someone in the world suffering more than him. When comparing his plight to Ling Jian, he was naturally in a much better situation. A Broken Bar, Updated by novelful.com. Hearing a soft groan coming out from the room, Ling Tian slapped his forehead. Time to get busy. He then hurriedly walked into the room. The one who let out the groan was naturally Miss Shui Qian. Her injuries from the battle weren't too heavy and she had only overused her inner qi. But after witnessing the repulsive actions of her family's elders, she was completely disappointed with the attitude of her family and could no longer see any hope for the future of her family. At the same time, the conviction that she had held onto all her life had also collapsed. Under a state of overexhaustion, she could no longer battle the demons in her heart and collapsed. The fatigued Shui Qian was struck down by the internal and external assaults of her mind and body. It was also Ling Tian's mind-calming medicine that allowed Shui Qian to rest and recover. After a long rest, Ling Tian was certain that Shui Qian's situation should be better. "It's you, you're back." On the bed, an extremely weak Shui Qian looked at Ling Tian with shock. At the same time, a trace of joy flashed past her eyes and her face flushed red. But upon thinking about the things that had happened recently, her mood could not help but turn dull again. "It is me indeed." Ling Tian walked in with a chuckle. "Miss Shui, we are truly fated. Every time we meet, you would be lying on the bed." Shui Qian let out a melancholic smile and forcefully lifted herself up as she said in a lonely tone, "Ling Tian, congratulations for coming back safely. You should be very happy to see me like this, right?" "That's right." Ling Tian dragged a chair over to the bed and sat with his legs crossed. He then looked her through the corner of her eyes, especially when seeing someone sink into hopelessness because she had been abandoned by the family that she had devoted her all to. "When I see someone incapable of finding hope in their future, I would definitely laugh." Shui Qian smiled with hopelessness. "That's right, you have a reason to laugh because you are the victor. Furthermore, you have successfully escaped from the #1 expert in the world and shocked the world with your name. I believe that there wouldn't be anyone in the world that you don't dare to laugh at." "Yeah, broken bar, should I congratulate you?" "I accept your congratulations, even if you are not sincerely congratulating me but ridiculing me." Ling Tian looked at her with a smile. "But I will treat it as an abandoned person being envious and jealous of a victor." "You!" Shui Qian sat up in anger with the intention to curse at Ling Tian but just did not know what to say. She then collapsed back into bed and said with a disheartened tone, "I wouldn't dare to be jealous. However, young noble Ling's accomplishment is truly worthy of my envy." As she said that, she turned away from Ling Tian and faced the wall as a tear rolled down her cheek. She refused to show Ling Tian her weakness. Ling Tian laughed coldly but his tone suddenly became gentler. "There is someone who was betrayed by his friend and abandoned by his family and loved ones. He was left with nothing and was injured in both body and spirit. A few days later, his parents were harmed by their enemies and also passed away," Ling Tian said with a tinge of mockery. At this moment, he actually began telling Shui Qian a story. Shui Qian didn't know what Ling Tian's intention was, but upon hearing the words betrayed and abandoned, she thought that Ling Tian was trying to describe her. With a grunt, she turned around and covered her ears, refusing to listen to Ling Tian. However, even when she covered her ears, Ling Tian's voice still entered them clearly. As such, this person experienced all the misery of life and was filled with hopelessness in his heart. He cried every day, every night, every month and every year. Apart from eating, he did not do anything else but cry. In the end, after crying for a few months, he actually had a huge harvest. Can you guess what his harvest was? Shui Qian snorted and felt that Ling Tian was just too irritating. To think that he would actually mock her at such a moment. He was far too ungentlemanly. She then heard Ling Tian feigning shock. He cried every day, and not only did his friend return, his friend even paid him back for all his losses and apologized to him earnestly. "Ah!" Shui Qian turned around and was filled with incredulity. The moment he realized that crying was effective, he continued to cry every day. All of a sudden, even his family accepted him and even allowed him to become the family head. At the same time, his lover also returned to his side and everything returned back to normal. Ling Tian said with a serious expression. A broken bar. Shui Qian's mouth widened in speechlessness. Seeing the effectiveness of crying, he cried even harder. Ling Tian continued, "Finally, after half a year of crying, even his enemies died from his crying and his parents who had died actually came back to life." His parents then enjoyed their old days in peace with the company of him and his familia. Broken bar. Nonsense. How is this possible? How can the dead come back to life? Shui Qianru was exasperated. It turns out that this fellow was only teasing her. What is the point of crying, Ling Tian? Do you treat me as a fool? Perhaps crying may be useless for him, but if Miss Shui continues crying, all your wishes would definitely come true, Ling Tian said with all seriousness. Aha! Broken bar. Shui Qianru glared at Ling Tian and was completely dumbfounded. It turns out that this fellow was only going a large round to try and comfort her. However, his method of comforting her was truly unique. A broken bar. After almost angering her to death, he came up with some weird story and forced her to comfort herself at the very end. Ling Tian was truly too crafty. However, she had to admit that this method of his was extremely effective. Shui Qianru smiled with tears in her eyes before suddenly bursting out into tears again. However, there was a dense feeling of joy in her heart this time. With her tear-filled eyes, she could see that Ling Tian was still looking at her. However, there wasn't a hint of mockery or ridicule in his eyes. There was only peace and even a trace of broken bar tenderness. Facing a beauty in distress, I am filled with tenderness. It was enough. Shui Qianru was satisfied. It turns out that he does care for me. Broken bar. He doesn't hate me. Broken bar. He is here to comfort me. Broken bar. Shui Qianru suddenly felt extremely rich and full in her heart. After the two of them been through so much, and after Shui Qianru had given up all hope, this sense of peace in her heart far exceeded any form of comforting words. Could she even dream for Ling Tian to show her love the moment he came? If that was the case, Shui Qianru would probably be even more afraid of broken bar. It was only through such a way that Shui Qianru would know that the other party wasn't taking pity on her or giving her charity. Instead, he was sincerely trying to guide her out of her sea of bitterness. That's right. The family has already regressed to such a state. I am truly devastated, in despair and in disappointment. Even if I were to die disheartened, what is the use of that? Elder brother has already been sacrificed because of the family and I do not want to become the next sacrifice. Shui Qianru smiled secretly and upon seeing Ling Tian still looking at her, she could not help but turn her face in embarrassment and cover her face with her hands. What are you looking at? Do I look very broken bar ugly right now? As she said the last few words, she began stammering as though she was afraid of the answer. With the knot in her heart finally untied, a lady like her would naturally care about her appearance. Broken bar. Ah! Ling Tian was taken aback. He never imagined for this lady in front of him to have such a swift change in her mood. He was still wondering if she had thought through things and never imagined that Shui Qianru would ask him such a question shyly. He could not help but be dumbfounded for a moment. You fool! Shui Qianru said with displeasure. I am asking you if I look very ugly right now. Ling Tian then studied her carefully and nodded with honesty. Extremely ugly. If you continue crying, you will be even uglier. You will not be able to meet anyone. Shui Qianru blew up. Scram! Ah! Ling Tian cried out in protest. I was only speaking the truth. Scram! Who wants to hear your stinking truth? Shui Qianru was completely incensed. Her eyes were wide open and she had a ferocious expression as though she wanted to swallow Ling Tian alive. At the same time, it seemed like just scolding Ling Tian wasn't enough and she grabbed the things by her side and began throwing it at Ling Tian. Very quickly, clothes, pillows, candle holders, a broken bar, various hidden weapons flew towards Ling Tian unceasingly. Ling Tian blocked the first wave of clothes but the attack of the other party was far too ferocious. Being unable to block the incoming flurry of attacks, his head was covered by something and he could only turn around and flee. Just when he escaped from the room, he heard a dong sound and something was smashed onto the door. Ling Tian let out a sigh and took off the cloth covering his head. Upon taking a look at it, he could not help but be dumbfounded. It was soft, silky and white. Broken bar. It was actually a lady's undergarment that still had the lingering fragrance of its owner. A broken bar. Chapter 546, Enticement. You a broken bar, come in. Come back in. After chasing Ling Tian out in frustration, Shui Qianru realized that she did not ask Ling Tian the biggest question in her heart. Despite her mood taking a turn for the better, She still did not know just what she should do from now on. Ling Tian spun a white cloth around his fingers like it was a windmill and leaned on the door with a perverted smile. Miss Shui, little Princess Shui, you have to be clear on one thing. This is the Ling family courtyard and not your Shui manor. For you to boss this young noble in such a manner, you would have to pay a huge price for it. You a broken bar. Shui Qian'er stared at Ling Tian and the words which she wanted to say were held back for a moment. But after seeing the item that Ling Tian was spinning around, her face flushed bright red and an embarrassed look could be seen in her eyes. She then forgot about what she originally wanted to say and shouted, "Return it to me, you pervert." "Return you what?" "A broken bar. This is the price you have to pay. Isn't it heavy?" Ling Tian continued leaning on the door frame and took a long sniff at the item in his hands as he praised, "How fragrant! What a fragrant female aroma!" The tone of his words and expression on his face was truly befitting of his title of a #1 profligate. "You pervert. A broken bar. You a broken bar. You're bullying me." Shui Qian'er began crying out in protest and the rims of her eyes turned red as she started sobbing. Just when she wanted to jump out of bed, she realized that she was wearing body cleaning clothes and the design of the clothes wasn't hers either. She then realized that Ling Tian must have helped her change out of her tattered clothes after treating her injury as her broken bar. No wonder that item was thrown out by her by accident. A broken bar. It turns out that she wasn't even wearing a broken bar. Being alive for 2 lifetimes, Ling Tian was not afraid of the heavens or earth but only afraid of a woman crying. Upon witnessing the beauty in front of him sobbing, he immediately lifted his hands up in surrender and reluctantly handed Shui Qian'er her undergarment. Shui Qian'er immediately snatched it back and buried herself under the blanket like a little cat. It was far too embarrassing. She was too engrossed with her argument with Ling Tian, so she didn't notice how she was exposing herself to Ling Tian. It was no wonder that fellow had such a lecherous look when talking to her with such a weird expression. Despicable, hateful, repulsive, hoodlum lecher. Shui Qian'er curled herself up under the blanket with her face burning in embarrassment as she cursed in her heart. "This darn lecher should have dropped me a few hints of my appearance at least." However, he actually didn't bother dropping me any hints and even openly took advantage of me. He even a broken bar. Shui Qian'er cursed Ling Tian many times over in her heart and the matter that she wanted to ask Ling Tian about was completely forgotten. Her mind was only filled with shame and embarrassment at this moment. A broken bar. An unmarried lady like myself was actually seen bare by a man. A broken bar. I don't have any face to see anyone else. A broken bar. Woo woo woo. A broken bar. Ling Tian scratched his head with bewilderment. Even after 2 lifetimes, he still did not understand the thoughts of women. "Just what is going on with this lass?" "After I entered the room, this woman chased me out of the room like a maniac by throwing everything within her reach at me. She then pleaded for me to return and after I came back in, she hid under the blanket." "Miss, we are currently in August, which is the hottest period of the year. Aren't you afraid of getting heat rash?" Women are truly incomprehensible and unfathomable creatures. "If Miss Shui doesn't have anything else, I will be taking my leave." Ling Tian was also getting a little irritated. "Who do you think you are, ordering me around as you wish?" "HMPH." Ling Tian waved his sleeves and wanted to take his leave. "You a broken bar. Don't go. A broken bar. I have something to say to you." From the blanket, a depressed voice could be heard. "You a broken bar. Turn around first and let me put on some clothes." A broken bar. Shui Qian'er's voice was filled with embarrassment. Strangely, not a single tinge of anger could be heard, and if one were to pay close attention, a slight tinge of satisfaction could even be heard. A broken bar. No wonder this lass had such a big reaction. A broken bar. She didn't realize that she was almost as good as half naked. A broken bar. Ling Tian shook his head helplessly. "Women, if you were to say that they were careless creatures, they will be more meticulous than anyone else when they are meticulous. But if you say that she is meticulous, she can actually be careless to the point that she didn't even notice what clothes she had in." A broken bar. I was still wondering why she was so unconstrained previously. "No wonder." Broken bar. "I have really lost to you, Shui Qian'er." Ling Tian turned around as he gave Shui Qian'er a thumbs up in his heart. Behind him, some rustling sounds could be heard and a shy Shui Qian'er could be heard. "I'm done. You may turn around now." Ling Tian let out a sigh and turned around slowly. "Miss Shui, I suddenly feel like a puppet." "A broken bar. A puppet that you are controlling with strings." "If you want me to go out, I have to go out. When you call me in, I have to come in. Then, you ordered me to turn around and I have to turn around. Now, you want me to turn back again. A broken bar, Ling Tian said with frustration. Miss, can't you just spit out what you want to say? Stop playing, please. I really don't have time to play with you. There are still many more people that I cannot provoke waiting for me. Broken bar. Update by novelfull.com. Shui Qian'er's face was still slightly pinkish, and upon hearing what Ling Tian said, she could not help but be stunned. Was there anything wrong with what I just did? Why does it seem like I am so tyrannical in his description? Did I really go too far? Hearing what Ling Tian had said, Shui Qian'er felt slightly apologetic and almost wanted to apologize. Wait, there seems to be something wrong here. Broken bar, right? This fellow only talked about my actions but did not talk about why he received such a treatment from me. His words are no different from him quibbling and a one-sided statement. To think he can still act as though he had suffered a huge grievance because of me. Broken bar. Why don't you talk about how you took such a huge advantage of me? Why didn't you talk about why I chased you out in the first place? The reason for all of that is because of that despicable mouth of yours and your lecherous eyes. HMPH. Shui Qian'er glared at Ling Tian and knew that it was impossible for her to win against him in a war of words. Thus, she ignored what Ling Tian said and continued, this little sister has something to consult young noble Ling about. I hope that young noble Ling can help enlighten me on account of the fact that Qian'er is currently in a desperate situation with my future bleak. She knew that arguing with Ling Tian was pointless and thus went straight to the main point. Ling Tian sat down on a nearby chair and said lazily, if not for the bad situation in your family, why would I be here today? Speak. This young noble shall help to clear up your doubts for free today. As the saying goes, a master for a day, a father for life. Even though I am not so strict, you should be more respectful at the very least. Shui Qian'er rolled her eyes, and upon thinking about the situation of her family, she could not help but grow depressed. She could no longer smile and asked gloomily, with regards to the situation of myself and the Shui family, I believe that young noble Ling is extremely well informed. Can I ask what I should do right now? What should the Shui family do? Do we still have any hope? Shui Qian'er tiredly sighed. I truly feel as though I am at the end of the road. I can't take another step forward but have no paths of retreat. Broken bar. For some reason, the first person which Shui Qian'er thought about when falling into such a situation wasn't her brother or father but her former enemy, Ling Tian. It seems as though she was certain that Ling Tian definitely had a way to solve her problems and it was only a matter of whether or not he was willing. Ling Tian smiled and replied slowly, Miss Shui, you are only trapped by your own rigid thinking. This is actually a simple problem. As long as you change your perspective, the problem will be easily solved. Oh? Shui Qian'er raised her head up in shock. In actual fact, the two questions that Miss asked are actually a single one. Mrs. Problem actually isn't a problem but the source of the problem lies elsewhere. As long as the problem of the Shui family is solved, everything else would be solved along with it. Does Miss think what I say makes sense? Ling Tian replied slowly. Since Shui Qian'er was asking him earnestly, Ling Tian would naturally retract his previously frivolous act. Of course I am aware of this. Shui Qian'er sighed. However, the problem of the Shui family concerns many generations, and how could it be so easily solved? If the problem is truly solved, the Shui family's foundations would definitely be greatly weakened. Regardless of the faction that emerges victorious, at least half of the Shui family's members would be wiped out. At that time, would the Shui family still be the Shui family? Shui Qian'er sighed with heartache. The Shui family is a huge family with 1,000 years of history. How have we regressed to such a state? Ling Tian fell silent for a moment as he thought about the Yu family. He then could not help but add on with a tinge of mockery, is it only the Shui family? However, his voice was too soft and Shui Qian'er did not hear him clearly and asked, what did you say? I said, is this very strange? Ling Tian raised his head with a cold expression. For the Shui family to regress to such a state, is there anything strange about it? What do you mean? Are you trying to say that it is only right for the Shui family to regress to such a state? Shui Qian'er frowned and a tinge of anger could be heard. Am I wrong? Ling Tian asked with a sneer. Let me ask you, as a direct descendant of the Shui family, Do you know how many times such a situation occurred in the history of the Shui family? While some situations may be less severe and others more severe, how many times has such a situation occurred? Shui Qian was stumped for a moment as she recalled her family history. In the past 1,000 years, while such a situation wasn't common, such a situation must have happened at least a few times. At the very least, there were 4 to 5 times recorded in their family's history. Thinking about Ling Tian's question, Shui Qian could not help but be puzzled. Just what was Ling Tian driving at? Ling Tian continued asking, then do you know why is it that while there were many enormous martial families over the past 1,000 years, only the Yu and Shui families were able to survive? Where have all the other powerful families gone? Shui Qian frowned and replied, all of the other families have naturally regressed to the point that they eventually disappeared. What is the point of asking such a question? Could there be a special reason for their disappearance? 1,000 years ago, how did the strength of the Yu and Shui families compare to the other martial families? According to what I know, the strength of the Yu and Shui families wasn't at the peak and there were a few other families stronger than both the Yu and Shui families. Why is it that those families have disappeared? Why was it that only the Yu and Shui families are left behind? These broken bar. Shui Qian did not know how to reply. Ling Tian sneered, regardless of how large the enmity between the Yu and Shui families, one thing is for sure, the Shui family was only able to survive for 1,000 years because of the presence of the Yu family. At the same time, the Yu family was only able to survive because of the Shui family. It was because of the 60-year battle between the families that allowed your families to survive through the ages. Shui Qian was startled. Just when she was about to retort against what Ling Tian had said, she realized that what he said truly made sense. The more she thought about it, the more sense it made. All along, the Shui family always had a single goal: defeat the Yu family and destroy them. However, this goal of theirs had never been accomplished over the past 1,000 years and it spurred every generation of their Shui family disciples to fight for this goal. This was also true for the Yu family. Could it be that the 1,000-year history of our family was attributable to our enemy? Shui Qian felt this answer to be extremely ridiculous, but the truth was right in front of her eyes. All of a sudden, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. What is so ridiculous about that? As though he had seen through Shui Qian's thoughts, Ling Tian said, one would be able to stay alive because of threats but die because of peace. This is the most basic rule of survival. This is especially true for the larger families and empires. The core reason why all the large families or empires have been wiped out was that they no longer had any opponents. Without opponents, there wasn't any more motivation or goal for them to strive for. Without any external threats, internal strife would naturally occur within a family with the various factions fighting for power and authority. With fighting, there would definitely be sacrifice, and with sacrifice, there would definitely be blood. The moment there is blood, the fighting would only get more intense. Regardless of how powerful a family or empire is, they would definitely be weakened after a few rounds of fighting, and at the end of the day, even an insignificant family would be able to swallow this gigantic existence. What is so surprising about that? One would be able to stay alive because of threats but die because of peace. A broken bar. One would be able to stay alive because of threats but die because of peace. A broken bar. Shui Qian muttered this phrase under her breath and fell into a daze. There is also another important reason, which is that both the Yu and Shui families are similar in strength. Neither of the families has the ability to wipe out the other party and thus can only continue to fight each other. While the enmity between both families would only be deepened as the fighting continues, this deepened enmity would only spur both the families to work harder. Therein lies the secret for surviving 1,000 years. In truth, this secret is extremely worthless. In fact, there must have been exceptional family heads of both the families that noticed this point before but weren't willing to expose the truth. This is truly a sign of wisdom. Ling Tian smiled. Besides that, the most important point is the fact that both the families are on different continents and separated by a vast ocean. Why is this the most important point? Shui Qian could not help but interrupt. If both of the families were on the same continent, be it Heavenly Star or Heavenly Wind, they would have probably been wiped out by each other many times over. In just a couple of decades, both the families would definitely have engaged in an all-out battle, with the result being the disappearance of both families. Wouldn't it be too easy for them to kill each other if they were too near to each other? Ling Tian chuckled. However, both the families are on different continents and are the strongest families on their respective continents. Be it the Yu or Shui family, neither of them would dare to boldly intrude into the territory of their opponent. At the very most, they would only dare to harass the other party. Do you truly think that your Shui family would be able to wipe out the Yu family on Heavenly Star with your current strength? We can't. Shui Qian'er shook her head with a disheartened expression. Even if all the elites of the Shui family were gathered in Heavenly Star, we wouldn't be able to do so. It would be good if the Yu family didn't wipe us out. How would we dare dream about wiping the Yu family out? However, if we are in Heavenly Wind instead, even if all the elites of the Yu family arrive, we will be confident of burying them all there. Thus, the Yu family would not dare to go Heavenly Wind before unifying the continent. Ling Tian smiled profoundly. Lass, do you finally understand why both the Yu and Shui families were able to survive up until now? I do, Shui Qian'er said sincerely. After a short moment, she then glared at Ling Tian. What is the point of you telling me all of this? The key is what I should be doing and how our Shui family can break out of the current situation. Even with the presence of a huge threat like the Yu family, internal strife has still broken out within the family. Thus, what you have just said isn't absolute. You still don't understand what I mean? Ling Tian asked with a bewildered expression. They are two different issues. You have said it yourself that such a situation has occurred multiple times in your Shui family. Similarly, such a situation also occurred within the Yu family multiple times as well. Furthermore, the time when such a situation occurs would be largely similar between both families. At the very most, it would be separated by a few decades. This is something that every family has to experience. Don't you agree? Has to experience? Why do you say that? Shui Qian'er was puzzled. The rise of a family is like the prosperity of an empire. Ling Tian frowned and explained. The first generation will fight a bloody war to win the territories of the empire. The first ruler of the empire would understand the difficulties and tribulations of their victory and would naturally be on his guard. The second ruler would still be living in the shadows of the war and would have been through some war and thus will rule the empire earnestly. Even if the second ruler is useless, he should be able to keep the empire. From the third generation onward, everything would be different. They would be enjoying the fruits and riches of their previous generation's labor, and the tales of war would be like a distant story to them. Corruption would then start and internal strife would follow a broken bar. This would continue until a huge crisis strikes. At such a moment, it would either be the destruction of their empire or a talented leader would rise up to restore glory to the empire with a series of extreme measures. The result of that would not be any less bloody than the war which led to the formation of the empire. From that generation, a new cycle would begin if they are successful. A broken bar, Ling Tian said with a cold laugh. Currently, your Shui family is in the fourth generation or perhaps the fifth. A broken bar, haha. If a leading figure is unable to shine and lead your Shui family out of this mess, then the doom of your Shui family is determined. However, the Yu family is different. While the younger generations of both families are extremely rotten, the Yu family is much luckier because their family head is Yu Manlu. While Yu Manlu is extremely cruel, vicious and ambitious, he is definitely a wise leader and the one who will restore the Yu family's glory. On top of that, Yu Manlu's brothers are extremely loyal to him, and as long as Yu Manlu is alive, the Yu family will be a unified piece of iron. As for your Shui family, a figure like Yu Manlu is lacking. Even your father cannot be compared to Yu Manlu. On top of that, he does not have brothers to support him but only brothers who will fight with him for authority. Saying that, the tone of mockery in his voice became obvious. Originally, your Shui family had an advantage over the Yu family in terms of the younger generation. Of Yu Manlu's 3 sons, the most capable one is dead and the other 2 remaining ones aren't a cause for concern. In terms of the younger generation, your Shui family definitely had an advantage because of you and Shui Qianhuan. More accurately, Shui Qianhuan's abilities are far greater than Yu Manlu's 2 remaining children. Thus, even if the Shui family will be on the losing end for the next few decades, as long as the Shui family waits patiently, it wouldn't be impossible to turn the situation around. However, such a talent was actually killed by your 3 profligate cousins, a broken bar. Thus, it can be said that your Shui family is destined to be destroyed. Your Shui family is going to be destroyed because of self-destruction. While Shui Qianhuan can't be considered to be an exceptional talent, he is definitely considered outstanding when compared to the younger generation of the Shui family. After going one big round, Ling Tian finally brought the topic back to the main point. Thus, the Shui family is suffering from both internal and external conflicts but does not have an outstanding figure to clean up the mess and turn the situation around. It can be said that your Shui family has never been in such dire circumstances and the destruction of your family is imminent, even if you are able to resolve the internal struggles of the Shui family. If the losses are too great and there isn't a figure capable of intimidating all other parties at the helm, how would the other powers give you a time to catch your breath? Even without the presence of the Yu family, the situation of your Shui family is dire. Furthermore, there is an ambitious character like Human Lu eyeing covetously from the side. Shui Qian'er clenched her teeth and fell silent. Thinking about her brother who was left with a single breath, a boundless hatred exploded forth from her heart. Could it be that the 1,000 years of our Shui family's legacy will be destroyed in the hands of those degenerate cousins? Could it be that my father's faction has to admit their defeat? Chapter 547, Are You Willing? Stretching his waist lazily, Ling Tian stood up and indifferently said, Initially, your Shui family could be considered to have possessed a peerless expert overseeing the family, and that was your number 1 elder, Shui Wubo. However, he seems to be walking together on the same road as your 2 uncles right now. That also means he should be included on your father's list of those who must be cleansed from the family if you want to get past this hurdle. If you do not do so, then all the power will end up with your uncles. With Shui Wubo taking charge, who knows how many years your Shui family would be able to hold on for. Thus, in this current situation, this peerless expert is a hindrance to the Shui family rather than a help. Am I right? He. The last part of Ling Tian's words was full of ridicule, but Shui Qian'er only had the thoughts of her family in her mind. Even if Ling Tian's words were cutting, they were all true. The more she thought about this matter, the angrier she got. How would she still have the energy to deal with Ling Tian? She had come on her own initiative to ask him, and Ling Tian had replied honestly. Now for her to blame others, wasn't it a little unacceptable for her? Based on what you say, it is either our Shui family completely collapses, or the direct descendants are completely eradicated. Is there no third path for us to walk? Shui Qian'er's heart was full of fury, and her voice gradually got louder. Ling Tian, you should know that this is not the answer I want and that this thought will not even be entertained by me. Why are you being so cruel? Ling Tian leaned his side to one side as he coldly smiled. Cruel? How am I cruel? This is the truth, the actual facts. How did you want me to reply you? That the Shui family will be harmonious and peaceful all around, for them to live for millennia? Or did you want all the dead members to revive once again? Do you even think this is possible? If I tell you this is possible, would you believe it? Or would you dare? Shui Qian'er, you are no child, to be forgiven for living in dreams. You should be aware that the more you repeatedly press for an answer, it means that your heart has already determined that this answer cannot be found. Ling Tian's eyes shone. That's why you are constantly searching for that verification. Shui Qian'er opened her eyes wide, angrily staring at Ling Tian before slowly lowering her gaze in defeat. For the situation regarding the Shui family, I'll admit that you're absolutely correct. Your deductions hit the nail on the head, and while I don't want to admit it, this is the current condition of my Shui family. The reason why my brother and I were dispatched over to Heavenly Star was also the same reason. While I know that it's difficult to build up our influence on the Yu family's land, we still had to try. If my brother and I were to succeed, then our father would have the chance to cleanse the family and proceed with the final battle between the 2 families. It was a pity that we failed completely, and my brother even had to give up his life. Shui Qian'er shook her head sadly as a tear rolled down. Water of Heavenly Wind, what a prestigious name. A family almost in control of the entire Heavenly Wind. However, it has fallen to such a state today. How laughable. Right now, the family members who have malicious intents are far too many, Those of direct descent are not strong leaders, causing those of the side branch to flaunt their skills more and more. Many of the important positions are already been taken over by the people from the side branches. Even if we were to use the mentality of burning both common stone and jade together, it's already too late. Is this the fate of our Shui family? Ling Tian stood by the side silently. Shui Qian'er looked at him, before suddenly letting out a melancholic smile. Ling Tian, I've only just discovered that your ambition doesn't stop at Heavenly Star. In fact, your people have already stretched to the Heavenly Wind continent, right? Ha ha, you can relax. This point doesn't matter to me anymore. I will not reveal anything to my family, and in fact, I hope that you can succeed. A pity, I might not live to see that day come true. Will you not be able to see it? Ling Tian slowly asked. No, I won't. A killing intent as well as the lack of a will to live flashed in Shui Qian'er's eyes. Water of Heavenly Wind is a family with a millennium of background, a family with 1,000 years of splendor. However, this radiance only belongs to the direct line of descent. As for those who only strive for benefits within the family, they are not worthy of the name a water of heavenly wind. They're even more unworthy of taking over the hegemony that our forefathers paid for in blood. I would rather that this glorious name disappears in the generation of my father than to give it over to them, letting them tarnish it as they will. If I am to die, I'll drag them down with me. I will do it. I definitely will do it, and can achieve it. U.P. Dated by novelful.com. Ling Tian slanted his head to the side. Oh, I never thought that you would be such a strong-spirited lady. Indeed, you can give the men a run for their money. I respect you for that. However, I would still like to ask you, why did your father choose to send you two over at this pressing period? Doesn't he know of the 1,000-year hatred of the Yu family against you? Wouldn't this be more dangerous than back in your family, unless he really sent you two to be sacrificed? A broken bar. Shui Qian'er opened her mouth, wanting to reply, but she found herself lost for words and ended up closing her mouth involuntarily. According to my conjecture, your esteemed father's initial idea was just for the two of you to come over and create chaos. Based on your titles as the direct descendants of the Shui family, even if the Yu family were to find out your misdeeds, they would take you both as merely objects to profit over rather than silence you. From this point, we can conclude that Heavenly Star is indeed safer as compared to being in Heavenly Wind. However, you two were overconfident, and before making sure of your place, flipped the entire table over to the point that the mess cannot be handled by the both of you. This made your father's original plan go to waste, resulting in him being caught between a rock and a hard spot today. Now that the circumstances are rapidly spiraling downward due to the matter with your esteemed brother, all the procrastination done has resulted in zero meaning. Now the internal affairs of your family can only be solved through a bloodbath, and to some extent, you two siblings have only hastened the process. Ling Tian showed 2 rows of dazzling white teeth as he smiled. Based on the situation now, it is completely you guys reaping what you have sown. You should bear the responsibility, and not think about exchanging a life for a life, acting in such a heroic manner. Miss Shui's attitude and liberal speech seemed to be a little broken bar. Upon hearing Ling Tian's ending sentence, Shui Qian'er staggered, her face gray as ash as her lips trembled. She looked as though she was about to cry, but held it in at the last part. The only indication was the rims of her eyes turning red. Ling Tian actually could not bear to do this to her, bullying a lady so. He twisted his mouth as he thought that he should have achieved his purpose now. Now that everything had been stated clearly, and he had hit the nail on the head, he should start talking about his proposal next. If he were to continue down this line, the lady in front of him would sever her own meridians. That would be a dead loss for him. So he pretended to cough a few times, stretching out a finger to massage his temples as he revealed a pained expression. Actually, this matter was supposed to be a pure family dispute, and without the matter of your brother right now, just like what you asked me before, I would still have a method to allow you to cut your losses to the bare minimum. Right now, things are a little iffy, but it's not that there actually aren't any methods left. A broken bar. Shui Qian'er had actually given up completely, sitting there with a dejected look on her face. Hearing so, she suddenly leapt up, a renewed hope flaring in her eyes as she exclaimed, Ling, a broken bar? You a broken bar? Really have an idea? Idea? Ling Tian barked out a laugh. I definitely have one, but it's missing a person for the key role. What role? The role of the inheritor. Ling Tian furrowed his brows. So much talk about the family, but it all boils down to the fact that the males are the dominant gender, and that the position of the family head is only passed on to the males and not the females. The greatest question is that your brother is hanging on his last breath, and in a week at most, he will step onto the road towards the Yellow Springs. This would mean that your side would no longer have someone to continue the family line, or in other words, that your bloodline ends in your generation. From this point, so what if you successfully seize back power? In another decade or so, what will happen? Surely you can't be immortal. While your brothers were killed by Shui Qianhu and his group, you still require a male to inherit the title. There are 3 ways to be unfilial, of which having no sons is the worst. This point already spells your doom. Ling Tian narrowed his eyes as he stared at Shui Qianhu. If you can find a way to resolve this problem, then I'll have the confidence to allow your Shui family to convert danger to blessing. In at most 3 years, I'll make sure the power in the Shui family returns to your hands. Ling Tian specifically stressed the word your. Shui Qianhu's face changed rapidly, now green then red. It was only after a long while did she finally bite her teeth and say, "Aren't you just making things difficult? My dad's body was weak and he only had my brother and I. Now that my brother's life is in danger, how do you expect me to find another direct descendant? If I could choose someone from within the family, then why are we even still fighting?" Ling Tian laughed at this point. Who says that there are no more bloodlines of the direct descendants in the family? I've already said so. My dad only sired my brother and me. Where's the person you speak of? Things are closer than they seem. Ling Tian squeezed his eyes. Miss Shui, surely, you couldn't have been adopted, right? A dog's mouth can't have elephant tusks. You're the adopted one. Shui Qianhu burst out into rage as she stood up, before suddenly freezing and staring wide agape at Ling Tian. You a broken bar? You're saying a broken bar? Your meaning is, me? Exclamation mark. That's right, you. Ling Tian confidently nodded his head. I shall not take you on a wild goose chase. Before this, I've already analyzed the entire situation to you once. No matter which route you take, there's no way out for you guys. However, I've also said, that I have an idea and that I can execute it. Ling Tian's eyes gleamed. Shui Qianhu, I just need an assurance from you, and I'll help the Shui family tide over this difficult times. But a broken bar? I'm a woman. A broken bar? Shui Qianhu felt some hesitation, as well as a rare sense of anxiety. So what if you're a woman? Aren't you still the flesh and blood of your father, with the bloodline of the direct family flowing in your veins? You're probably not even 20 this year. Even if you only live up to 70 years, even if the Shui family goes to ruin in your generation, you've held it up for 50 more years than expected. Ling Tian coldly interrupted. It's better than letting it disappear among the winds and clouds right now. Furthermore, when you eventually have children, you just have to change their surnames to Shui, and they can continue the direct bloodline of your family. Shui Qianhu's pale face flushed with a bright red. While she acted all heroic previously, she was in the end still a virgin girl who had not been betrothed. Even the matters of her marriage were enough to embarrass her, and Ling Tian actually went a step further, starting to plan for her child Rina Broken Bar. Even with this immensely thick skin, Ling Tian also felt a little embarrassed, and coughed twice, saying, a broken bar? Maybe it's a little too early to talk about such matters. However, I'm only just speaking my thoughts, and this is a stupid idea from me. If we look at it this way, when you really go in and compete, in the event you succeed, then you can a broken bar. Don't go in a broken bar. Shui Qianhu jumped up in fright and embarrassment. She buried her face in her chest, and Ling Tian could observe a red flush creeping quickly across her face, to her ears, then to her white and flawless nape, and it proceeded to go lower a broken bar. Past that, Ling Tian could not see any further. While being embarrassed about the situation, Shui Qianhu mulled over Ling Tian's proposal, and after a long while, came the muffled reply, maybe my dad still can a broken bar. Ling Tian coldly snorted, breaking apart her fantasy. Based on theory, that is wholly possible, as your brother and your ages are not too spread apart. This proves that your esteemed father has a high broken bar. Cough cough cough. Never mind. But if so many years have passed and the two of you are still the only children, your esteemed father also has more than one wife, right? If one or two don't get pregnant, that's fine, but all of them a broken bar, then there's something to think about. You mean, someone had a part to play in this? Shui Qian'er suddenly lifted up her head. At the same time, this point sounded very plausible to her. Her hatred grew even deeper. Ling Tian sighed. Do you know why I'm the only heir in the entire Ling family? Shui Qian'er jumped, and replied incredulously, could it be that your family a broken bar? Ling Tian nodded gravely. That's why I know, and can even confirm. Both sentences ended midway, but the result and meaning were clear to both. Shui Qian'er mutely sat back down, and it was after a long while that her face suddenly turned red again. She stared at Ling Tian for no reason, suddenly spitting out a sentence, you've really played your cards well. This startled Ling Tian. Whatever was she talking about? Why this random sentence? Try as he might, Ling Tian could not decipher it, so he only continued, this road that I've mentioned is not the easiest to walk, so if you've made up your mind, you need to have sufficient mental preparations. After all, this world is a patriarchal society, and for a female to become the family head, the criticism she will receive will far outstrip that of a man. Furthermore, the values of family and lineage are deeply rooted in the people here. While you might have a son and wish for him to take your surname, your future husband's side might not agree to that, and this is also a point of discussion. However, all this can be discussed in the future. For that time, all of the Shui family's problems would be cleared, thus giving you more options. Shui Qian'er bit her lip, her eyes suddenly locking on Ling Tian with a fiery yet unfocused gaze. It was as though she had just woken from her dream, bleary and sleepy. It was unknown how she took Ling Tian's words, but she mysteriously asked, do you also think that way? Chapter 548, 3 Conditions. Me? Why does Miss Shui ask that question? Ling Tian laughed in his heart. As a soul that came from the 21st century, how would he be concerned about such a matter? However, he was also able to guess the thoughts of Shui Qian'er through this question of hers. It seems like this lass has truly fallen for this young noble. In fact, Ling Tian was extremely clear of Shui Qian'er's present thoughts and had always known about Shui Qian'er's feelings toward him. But under such circumstances, he couldn't be the first to make a move or even give any hints. After all, him offering Shui Qian'er advice and also all the happenings within the Shui family in this period of time were all within his plans. For the situation of the Shui family to deteriorate so quickly, even if a large cause of that was because of the Shui family themselves, his Ling family courtyard was also a huge reason. In fact, all of the losses the Shui family suffered in Heavenly Star were because of Ling Tian and Ling Chen. One of them slaughtered mercilessly and reaped lives like a grim reaper while the other plotted a roundabout scheme to take advantage of the situation. All the plans of the Shui family in Heavenly Star were ruined in the hands of these two individuals. If not for Ling Tian's all-out massacre, Ling Chen's following plans would have been useless. Even if Shui Qian'er was aware of this, she did not have anything to say about it. If not for the Shui family plotting against Ling Tian's father, how would Ling Tian launch a massacre? As for all of Ling Chen's plots, Shui Qian'er was completely clueless about them. In fact, she was still grateful towards Ling Chen for rescuing her from the hands of the enemy. However, she was still clueless about the fact that her father's trusted aide who was sent to protect her had perished in the hands of her sister. Thus, Ling Tian changed Ling Chen's plans slightly and offered Shui Qian'er a plan to resolve the Shui family's crisis. In fact, he also had his own motives for doing that. Under the current circumstances, no matter how thick Ling Tian's skin was and regardless of whether or not he had any goodwill towards Shui Qian'er, he wouldn't be able to bring himself to start a relationship with her. Besides that, Ling Tian only admired her headstrong character and acknowledged her abilities. Apart from a tinge of admiration for her beauty, Ling Tian did not have many feelings for Shui Qian'er. At the very least, his feelings for her could not be compared to his feelings for the other princess of a 1,000-year-old family, Yu Bingyan. One was true love while the other was just some fantasy or broken bar. The moment Shui Qian asked the question, she immediately realized that she shouldn't have asked such a question and could not help but flush red. But upon seeing Ling Tian's calm response, her heart turned cold. Despite her putting down her pride and throwing all of her face away, he's still a broken bar. In that instant, Shui Qian had the urge to burst out crying in grief. However, she was able to suppress the grief in her heart and regained her calmness. Young noble Ling is truly a talented individual, and this is definitely a plausible plan. As compared to the destruction of my Shui family, this can be a possible path. May I ask young noble Ling, for a young noble to aid me and my Shui family as such, what do you want in return? I don't believe that young noble does not want anything in return. I hope that young noble will not insult my intelligence and spell out your true intentions. Intelligent? You are intelligent indeed, Ling Tian continued. With Miss Shui's intelligence, you should know what reciprocity means. For me to pay such a huge price, it would be impossible for me to not expect anything in return. If I do not have sufficient benefits, why would I do this? However, you can definitely give me what I want. Please speak, Shui Qian said, as though she was asking Ling Tian to extort her as he wished. However, her heart was aching at that moment. According to what I know, even with the rifts in the Shui family, your Shui family is still the #1 family in Heavenly Wind. Be it in terms of martial strength or financial capabilities, your Shui family is definitely at the top of the food chain. In fact, if not for your Shui family being the #1 family in Heavenly Wind, the situation of the Shui family might not have deteriorated so quickly. I want the Shui family to support my military actions in Heavenly Wind unconditionally in the future when I invade Heavenly Wind. I want the Shui family to aid me in controlling Heavenly Wind. Unconditional support? Wouldn't my Shui family become your subordinates? This is impossible. How can I ever accept such conditions? Even if my father was here, he would never agree to it. This is no different from you swallowing my Shui family. Impossible. This is impossible. Shui Qian was enraged. She thought that Ling Tian was making a fool out of her and trying to hit their Shui family when they were down. Impossible. Miss Shui, don't be so certain yet, Ling Tian replied. If any other family heard my condition, they would only be ecstatic with joy. Why does Miss Shui say that it is impossible? Shui Qian raised her head stubbornly. It is a pity that my Shui family isn't any other family. The disciples of the Shui family can perish but will never be a lackey for anyone else. We would rather be destroyed than submit to another power. There isn't any room for discussion. Good spirit, you are indeed the descendant of a 1,000-year-old family. Ling Tian clapped his hands. However, when did I say that I wanted your Shui family to submit to me? When did I say that you guys were going to be my subordinates? Shui Qian, Miss Shui, little Princess Shui, acting rashly before understanding the full picture. This isn't the Shui Qian that I know. I don't believe that you can't understand the huge benefits of my condition. As long as the Shui family agrees to my condition, your Shui family will only be stronger than before. Your Shui family would not have any signs of decline. Can't you see the benefits that your Shui family could obtain? Miss Shui, your reaction truly surprised me. You asked me to not insult your intelligence, but you are the one insulting your own intelligence at this moment. Think about it for a while. If you are unable to understand the benefits behind it, then there isn't a need for us to work together. I will not work together with a fool. My plans would only be ruined as a result. After getting reprimanded by Ling Tian, Shui Qian grew a little frustrated. But after lowering her head to think about the matter, she was immediately enlightened. Even if Ling Tian unified the continent, he would need someone to rule over it. Ling Tian's foundations and roots were in Heavenly Star, and it would be impossible for him to move to Heavenly Wind. Apart from a deeply rooted family like the Shui family, there wouldn't be a better choice. Even if Ling Tian sent over dozens of officials, their prestige would not be able to match up to the influence of the Shui family. At the very least, for the first few decades, their Shui family would not face any dangers. Thus, Ling Tian's suggestion was extremely ideal for the Shui family and could even be said to be an extremely good chance. The reason why Ling Tian would choose the Shui family was also because he had no other choice. The roots of the 1,000-year-old Shui family were far too deep in Heavenly Wind. In the past few years, They were almost like the sovereigns of the continent. If Ling Tian wanted to support another power to rule over the continent, it would take far too much time, and it was also difficult to pick a right party. At the same time, the Shui family would also end up becoming unified in the face of an external threat, and Ling Tian definitely did not have the time and energy to deal with all of these. Thus, his choice was naturally the Shui family. While the Shui family was currently filled with storms and was on the brink of destruction, even if he did not make a promise with Shui Qian, Ling Tian would not allow the Shui family to be destroyed. Instead, he would choose a puppet to support within the Shui family. However, such a method was time-consuming and might not necessarily be successful. Thus, Ling Tian made the effort to persuade Shui Qian today. First, Shui Qian was a direct descendant, and second, she had feelings for him. While Ling Tian was not certain how these feelings would hold up against her loyalty to the family, it was better than nothing. Shui Qian finally came to a decision in her heart. I agree. However, you have to agree to a few of my conditions. Ling Tian chuckled. Miss Shui is straightforward indeed. Please state your conditions. Shui Qian paused for a moment before saying, the first condition is that my Shui family has to pass through our crisis first, and all the degenerates of the family must be wiped out before this plan can be carried out. What do you think? Without even a thought, Ling Tian replied, naturally. Your Shui family filled with internal strife is like a pile of loose sand. Even if I wanted to use your Shui family in such a state, it would be useless to me. Shui Qian clenched her teeth and said, the second condition is that this plan can only be carried out after you unify Heavenly Star. If you are able to unify Heavenly Star, this plan will be carried out. But what if you lose in the battle of hegemony in Heavenly Star? Our Shui family would never send troops over to aid you. You have to understand this. Ling Tian burst out laughing. Of course, if I end up losing the war, you can forget about this agreement with me. At that time, I would definitely be dead. How would I be able to invade Heavenly Wind? Your Shui family can naturally continue to be the hegemon of Heavenly Wind. Shui Qian felt her heart shake. Upon hearing Ling Tian mention his death, Shui Qian felt a piercing pain in her heart and her face turned pale. As for the third condition, a broken bar. Shui Qian paused for a moment and suddenly said, can I hold on to this third condition? Hold on to a condition? Ling Tian said with depression. He had already predicted that Shui Qian would have her conditions, and the first two conditions that she made were within his expectations. However, he never expected her to say that she wanted to hold on to a condition. On top of that, the two conditions that Ling Tian felt had the largest room for negotiation had not appeared. That's right. I can't think of it right now. Shui Qian looked at Ling Tian. I will let you know when I think of it. I hope that you will not reject me at that time. Ling Tian took 2 steps out of the door and turned around. Alright. However, I hope that you do not come up with unrealistic or unreasonable conditions. Ling Tian smiled brightly, because I will not accept them even if you mention them. Shui Qian rolled her eyes at Ling Tian's shameless words. Even if she kept some room for future negotiation, Ling Tian also had the right to reject her. On this point, they had tied in this round of negotiations. However, Ling Tian's plan already had some initial success. Thank you for your continued following. Please support us by subscribe to encourage our continued creation, and press the bell to notify new chapter from us. Thank you.